Welcome back. You're watching ED Insight. A season of scams followed by public outcry has forced the government to take a serious look at tackling corruption. Everyone agrees that the best way to do that is through the Lokpal bill, which will soon be tabled in Parliament. But the scope of the bill is still in question. Is the Lokpal bill better than the current regulatory framework? And will it really help? Nikhil Sivadas finds out.
The stage is set for every Indian to stand up against corruption. And this time it looks like not many errant public officials will be spared. That's because the new Lokpal bill proposes to have an independent anti-corruption body in each state. A body that will plug loopholes in the way that India has dealt with poor governance so far. The question though is, what should India do with the existing anti-corruption wing of the CBI and the Central Vigilance Commission? And should India's topmost public official be scrutinized under this bill?
All five of us and our considered opinion was that the Prime Minister should not be under the Lokpal, and this is, we are encouraged by the fact that very important functionaries, constitutional functionaries, or people who have served as important positions agree with this point of view. I think this is a very important and a very sensitive topic on which some discussion can take place, and it must take place in the right conditions.
The question is that there are a lot of conflicting views on inclusion of the judiciary, on inclusion of the Prime Minister. We would like the government to first spell out its stand, and then certainly there would be a larger debate in Parliament.
We would insist that the Prime Minister has to be brought, because as per the law today, under the Prevention of Corruption Act, the Prime Minister is not immune from the Prevention of Corruption Act. He is under the Prevention of Corruption Act. And this argument that after a person ceases to be the Prime Minister, you can prosecute him, I think that's frankly a ridiculous position.
What's also ridiculous is the way that India has handled corruption-related cases so far. In the past 3 years, the CBI has registered 1,852 cases against government officials, 16 cases against IAS officers, and 5 against IPS officers. However, the existing laws like the Central Civil Services Conduct Rules of 1964 that governs the financial dealings of central government employees have been criticized by experts as being too lenient. For instance, the CBI recommended regular departmental action against 1,402 public servants in the past 3 years, instead of imposing severe punishment. That's not all. There are multiple agencies and overlapping laws like the Indian Penal Code, the Prevention of Corruption Act, the Companies Act, and the Prevention of Money Laundering Act, as well as agencies like the Central Vigilance Commission and the Central Bureau of Investigation.
If you look at the penalties, the FCPA, for instance, which is a US statute, puts on you is in millions of dollars. I mean, if you look at the Siemens case, it was nearly $1 billion or more. So the question is that penalty, it would be unheard of penalty in India where of a penalty for bribery and corruption.
We do not have the kind of laws countries like US has. Just to give you an example, like UBS, I mean, India had sought certain names of individuals who had invested into various Swiss accounts, and till date we couldn't encourage UBS to share those names.
According to experts, the lack of infrastructure is what makes these agencies toothless. That's because most of these cases are complicated and involve a large number of witnesses. Data collection, scientific and forensic examination of exhibits is tedious and cumbersome, and finding legal advice on investigations is tough. Until January this year, there were 9,919 pending cases which were under trial in the CBI courts.
There's a more endemic problem in the whole enforcement system in India, whether it's the police agencies or the court system. Fact is that we are a country of 1.4 billion people, and no matter how much you staff the regulatory and enforcement system, it's just going to be a drop in the ocean. I don't think there are any easy answers to that. The easy answer is to have much more clarity in the law itself.
Clarity in law is required because more often than not, cases in courts are delayed because of legal loopholes. Take for instance the case of the PIL filed by noted lawyer Ram Jethmalani on the inaction in tackling the black money problem in India. The Supreme Court asked the government to furnish the names of individuals who have accounts in the banks of Liechtenstein. When the government claimed absolute immunity, saying it could not offer names of all the account holders, the court directed it to furnish names of bank account holders against whom investigations were wholly or partly concluded, including those who received show cause notices. But government agencies allegedly failed in furnishing the said data, and early this week the Apex Court decided to set up a special investigation unit to probe the matter.
Supreme Court had made very strong observation against the government and the government agencies that they had not provided the required information, documents and details in spite of the repeated direction given by the court. They had tried to somehow or other delay the proceeding. This is the first very strong observation, and Supreme Court had said it is an exceptionally serious case because lakhs and crores of the Indian money had gone abroad, and the court apprehended and expressed its worries as to how that black money of lakhs and crores have been used illegally.
Apart from the legal system, it's also important to have a transparent mechanism for fundraising activities of political parties. According to the Global Integrity Index of 2010, India struggles to promote and implement transparency in the financing of political parties and candidates. That's despite the fact that political parties are bound by law to maintain accounts regularly, record and disclose names of donors contributing more than Rs 10,000 and have their accounts audited by a qualified accountant. That's not all. The Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha Declaration of Assets and Liabilities Rules of 2004 specify that every member of parliament must submit an annual statement of assets within 90 days of taking the oath, and that the declarations made by the MPs have to be updated every year. Yet there is little or no record of the disproportionate assets owned by them. 110 Lok Sabha MPs have failed to declare their assets, even 8 months after the election to the 15th Lok Sabha.
If they see that the system allows that with no checks and balances, then they start becoming corrupt. And it starts small and then it keeps growing, and it's a slippery slope. And this is why you see lots of people who get into government who are honest to begin with, but over a period of time in their careers, they actually end up becoming corrupt.
Here, India could learn from developed countries that have robust anti-corruption laws in place. For instance, the US Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, which prohibits domestic companies, foreign listed companies and citizens from corruptly paying or offering to pay money or anything of value directly or indirectly to a foreign official to obtain or retain business. The FCPA is jointly enforced by the Department of Justice and the SEC. That's not all. Entities can be in violation of the FCPA even outside the United States.
It's enforceable, penalties are being levied, criminal prosecutions are happening with respect to that law. So there is definitely a sense of, I would say, caution when people indulge in these kind of activities, corrupt activities.
The Prime Minister agrees, and he's recently stated that good laws and a strong institution alone will never suffice in dealing with corruption. He stated that India needs to simplify procedures, reduce discretion, eliminate arbitrariness, and increase transparency in the way the government functions. But will that be enough? Perhaps not, because the integrity of agencies like the CBI has been questionable. That's why the big push for the Lokpal bill. But the question is, who will the Lokpal be accountable to? Simply put, the situation is a peculiar one. The policemen need policing, there is no clarity in the change in guard, and the bill itself is mired in controversy even before it has been tabled in Parliament. So will it ever see the light of day? Well, your guess is as good as mine.
Transparency International's chairman, Yuget Labelle, answers that and more on the other side of this break. Stay with us.